Before the start of this conversation, I actually asked you because I wanted to ask for your permission. And are you willing to talk about what's happening at the moment in Serbia? We all know about the protests. I don't think they are. The media is covering them a lot here, so much as they have to in the West. I think there is going to be a lot more coverage about this, but at the same time, these protests are going and going and going. What could be changed? What are the students fighting for? I know why they are protesting. Obviously, this incident that happened on the station, if you can call it an incident. So, what do you think about the whole situation?
Well, the Western media are not covering these protests for two reasons. One, more obvious than the other, namely much bigger global crisis, geopolitical crisis, two terrible wars, one in Ukraine and the other in the Middle East, in Palestine, and let's say partially and rightly overwhelmed by these two crises. On the other hand, they are also not reporting because these protests do not fit, if you want, into Western narrative of what is happening in the world and in Europe, and they don't fit into Western interests.
They're more like anti-protests,
both political and economic interests. So the whole turmoil, even before the incident started, with the plans for lithium excavations. So these rare materials that we see now behind conflict in Ukraine, and that Trump is making a deal about the rare materials in Ukraine, and we see all great powers, China, America, Europe, fighting around these rare materials in Africa, in Ukraine, in Asia, throughout the world, and Serbia is one of these battlegrounds because of its own dynamics and wars in the 90s. Serbia has not joined EU, thus the European environmental legislation does not exist or affect Serbia. So this excavation is possible, which wouldn't be possible in this country or in other European countries. So European Union, Germany, who has interest in these lithium batteries and so on, are not happy that people are opposing this. Okay, so that's why these protests are not positively seen. And also they are not positively seen because they are seen as creating instability. Okay, without going into details, who is right or so on, the current, and for the last 13 years, president of Serbia and so on, has been a corresponding partner of European Union, America, and so on, and has kept the area stable, which was their primary interest. So their first knee-jerk reaction is that we don't want any turmoil, any instability. We have enough instability with Middle East and Ukraine. So they were never going to get a positive coverage, which is sad, given that they were motivated by a legitimate outrage over this tragedy at the Novi Sad railway station, when a canopy of a recently renovated station, so as a result of the recent renovation, a canopy at the entrance gate fell and murdered 16 people. And people were rightly outraged, and then students of all Serbian universities walked out and declared general strike, and all universities took part throughout Serbia.
What is the solution,
Motivated,
though?
triggered by this tragedy, but driven by enormous amount of corruption in Serbian society, which is a side effect of this special stability, if you want, or stabilitocracy, as these regimes in the Western Balkans, Albanian, Bosnian, Serbian, and so on, are titled. So they are not democracies, and European Union does not want them to become democracies or to enter European Union. They only want them stable. So we call them stabilitocracies. Okay, and Serbian president is heading one of these stabilitocracy, and that these protests threaten to undermine this stability, and unfortunately, the side effect of stabilitocracy, if European Union, your major political economic partner, tolerates you and only wants stability from you, okay, that you don't start new wars, then you have open hands for stealing European money, for corruption, for all sorts of violation of rules of law and so on. That would not be possible within European Union. But these stabilitocracies have open hands.
Is Europe afraid if Vučić is gone, what's going to happen with the country?
Absolutely.
Wow. That's a very original. I was thinking the same about Russia. That's another subject, but do we need to know what's going to happen after Putin is gone? After Behemoth comes Leviathan, or was it after Leviathan comes Behemoth? Yes. And that's a very serious thing.
And it's a legitimate fear.
Yeah.
But it's we should not allow politics be driven by fear, and even the current regime is the product of EU policies in the Balkans, and this can change, and this can affect both their partners in the Balkans, if you want, and especially in the future they can change their policies and lay ground for a different Balkans. It's more than 20 years ago that in Thessaloniki there was a big meeting in 2003, I believe, which promised that the whole of Balkans would become part of EU, and now 22 years later we are nowhere closer to that aim. So it's a big failure of European integration processes.